Welcome to The Explainer. I am so incredibly excited you're joining us today because we are talking about something literally all of us deal with, your brain. It is, hands down, your body's most demanding, high-maintenance organ. I mean, it dictates everything from your mood to your overall productivity at work. So we're going to unpack the really fascinating science behind how the food you eat directly affects your brain. And even better, we're going to set you up with a highly practical guide to optimize your daily focus so you can absolutely conquer your workday just by changing what you put on your plate. So, check out this number, 2%. The human brain makes up only about 2% of our total body weight. It's kind of tiny, right? You'd probably think an organ that small wouldn't really need all that much upkeep. But despite its small size, it has this incredibly disproportionate impact on our physical and mental resources.
Okay, let's really dive into this. That tiny 2% organ, it basically acts like a massive, high-performance engine, burning through up to 20% of our daily energy resources. To efficiently transform and synthesize all those nutrients, it needs fuel. And honestly, it needs a lot of it. It's an absolute powerhouse, and how we fuel that powerhouse completely dictates how well it performs for us.
So, here's our quick roadmap for today's explainer. We're going to cover the demanding engine, glucose and clarity, fats for maintenance, proteins and mood, and finally, your workday menu.
Starting with Section 1, the demanding engine, let's look at what it's actually made of.
To figure out what to feed the brain, we first need to understand what's actually in there. And what's really interesting is what happens if we look at the brain without any water. So if you sucked all the moisture out of your brain and broke it down to its nutritional content, it basically breaks down into four main components. Most of the weight of your dehydrated brain is actually fats, also known as lipids. Then, in the remaining matter, you've got proteins and amino acids, traces of micronutrients, and glucose. Obviously, the brain is a lot more than just the sum of its parts, but each of these specific components distinctly impacts how we function, our development, our mood, and our energy at work.
All right, moving on to Section 2. Glucose and clarity. This is all about fueling the engine.
Most of the brain's energy comes from carbohydrates that our body digests into glucose, or blood sugar. Now, our frontal lobes are so exquisitely sensitive to drops in glucose that a sudden change in mental function is actually one of the primary signals of a nutrient deficiency. And this brilliantly illustrates why the type of carbohydrate you eat matters immensely. Carbs come in starch, sugar, and fiber. A high glycemic food, like, say, white bread, acts exactly like throwing a thin sheet of dry paper onto a campfire. It causes this massive, rapid release of glucose into the blood, a huge flame, but then inevitably comes the sharp dip. The fire burns out, your blood sugar shoots down, and it takes your attention span and your mood right down with it.
So, compare that fast-burning paper on the left to the dense, heavy log on the right. Slow-release foods, things like oats, grains, and legumes, they act like that heavy log. They provide a much slower, steady glucose release. And that steady burn is exactly what enables a stable level of attentiveness and clarity to get you through a really busy morning.
Okay, Section 3 is fats for maintenance. We're talking structural brain health here.
Beyond just immediate fuel for burning, your brain requires serious structural maintenance to prevent long-term degenerative conditions. And remember earlier, the dehydrated brain is mostly fat. Out of all the fats in your brain, the absolute superstars are omegas 3 and 6. Now, these are essential fatty acids, and essential means our bodies cannot make them on their own. We literally have to get them from our diets. So foods like nuts, seeds, and fatty fish, they are completely non-negotiable for your brain health.
So, the crucial point here is this. Eating those omega-rich foods physically creates and maintains your brain's cell membranes. Think of them like the bricks in a wall, really securing that structural foundation. While long-term consumption of things like trans and saturated fats can actually compromise your health, omegas are actively in there holding the physical structure of your brain cells together.
Let's jump to Section 4, proteins and mood, and how they manipulate our behavior.
We've talked about structure and fuel, but brain chemistry is how nutrients manipulate our daily behavior. And we have all experienced this, right? You eat a massive plate of heavy pasta for lunch, and an hour later you are just totally overwhelmed by apathy and sleepiness, the classic food coma. But if you have a protein-rich meal instead, you feel alert, focused, and totally ready to tackle those afternoon tasks. That late-night alertness or post-lunch apathy isn't just you being tired. It is the direct biological effect of food acting on your brain. Here is exactly what's happening behind the scenes. Amino acids from protein contain the precursors to neurotransmitters. Those are basically the chemical messengers that carry signals between your neurons. They affect your mood, your sleep, your attentiveness, and even your weight. The complex compounds in food actually stimulate your brain cells to release mood-altering chemicals like norepinephrine, dopamine, and serotonin. But here's the catch. Getting into your brain cells is tricky. Amino acids literally have to compete for limited access. And that is exactly why eating a varied diet is so incredibly vital. It maintains a balanced combination of those brain messengers and keeps your mood from getting skewed too far in any one direction.
And finally, Section 5, your workday menu. Let's build a practical routine.
Let's move to and see how this builds a really solid plan. We're going to synthesize all this science into a highly practical, step-by-step workday routine so you never have to fall victim to that dreadful 3 p.m. afternoon slump ever again. Here is your science-backed menu for a highly productive workday. Step 1. Breakfast, you want oats and grains. This gives you that slow-burning log for the fire, slow-release morning glucose so you aren't crashing at 10 a.m. Step 2. Lunch. Think fatty fish and legumes. You're getting those essential omegas for brain structure, plus complex amino acids to keep you sharp and alert instead of sleepy. And step 3 is your afternoon snack. Nuts, seeds, and fruits. The nuts and seeds are giving you more of that cellular maintenance, while the fruits bring in these powerful micronutrients and antioxidants. Those are there to strengthen your brain and fight off free radicals that can actually destroy your brain cells over time.
To sum it all up, sustaining your workday brain power requires a varied diet. Balancing all of these components, the steady glucose, the essential omegas, the complex amino acids, and vital micronutrients like vitamins B6, B12, and folic acid, is literally the ultimate key to sustaining your mental energy from 9 to 5. It prevents mental decline, and it keeps your engine running at peak performance. When it comes to what you bite, chew, and swallow, your choices have a direct, long-lasting effect on the most powerful organ in your body. Every single meal is an opportunity. You can either fuel your focus or you can trigger a crash. So I'll leave you with this question to really think about before you plan your meals for tomorrow. What will you choose to feed your most powerful organ? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope you use this knowledge to power a brilliantly focused day.